Merry Christmas, Cowboy Junction Church. I am so glad that I get to come to you and talk about what now we celebrate on this DVD or computer that you're watching this on. We get to celebrate the joyous gift of Christmas. It's a time that God gave us salvation. And Jesus is the reason for the season. I mean, come on, that's cliche, but it works every time. At the end of today's message on this Church on the Go, Christmas on the Go edition, we're going to take up our offering. And don't forget that. So stay tuned to the end. There's some special announcements we have also. But today, we've put together 4 stories about 4 families and individuals in Cowboy Junction who really saw the hand of God move in their lives in a very special way. The first one you're going to see is Renee Austin. And during one of our Easter services, Renee passed away. I mean, right there in the service. And maybe you were there, maybe you weren't, but quite possibly you've heard about this. Renee saw heaven, and our team went to work. And when Renee came back, the story she has to tell about what she experienced that day is truly amazing. Right after that, you see that we've got an amazing youth group, and Yesenia Olivas is an amazing young girl full of energy, wanting to serve the Lord. And we're going to get to hear about what God's doing in one of our youth here at Cowboy Junction. Then we're going to go to Eric and Dana Sasser. And Eric and Dana have been believing God for a baby for years. And they're going to tell you their personal story and journey about God navigating them through this childless child experience. And then last but not least, we're going to have Richard and Eileen Hicks tell us about Eileen's tragedy that God turned around and used as a triumph in her story of faith and a miracle, if you will, in their lives. So I'm excited. Hope you are too. Kick back, relax, and enjoy the next few minutes of Church on the Go Christmas edition.
I'm Renee Austin. I've lived in Hobbs 35 years and have been coming to Cowboy Junction for 5. I'm a mother of 2 children. My grown son lives here and has blessed me with my 2 precious grandbabies. We normally come to 10 o'clock service. I always have my grandbabies Saturday night. And because of the cookout and the Easter egg hunt, we decided to come to early service. Sitting in church, just so blessed. And Ty's message was awesome. And I started feeling faint. So I turned to my friend, and there was about 6 or 7 of us sitting there, and I whispered that I was feeling faint and I needed to leave. And he didn't hear me, so I said aloud, I'm fixing to faint. I feel lightheaded. The last thing I remember was my friend putting his hand through my Bible bag and purse handles and us climbing over our friend's knees. And the next thing I knew, I was floating through dark blue sky.
It was the first week that we had actually utilized volunteers for our medical team. And so I had gotten Renee Watts to volunteer, and she was sitting in service, listening to Ty preach. We had a large overflow that service, so I was in the media room. The next thing I knew, CG was coming in, and she said, they need you in the parking lot. They're doing CPR on someone. And what had happened is Renee Watts had followed Renee Austin out the door to check on her. And shortly after they stepped out the door, Renee Watts asked her, are you okay? And she turned around and didn't even get a word out. She collapsed on the sidewalk. So Renee checked for a pulse. There was no pulse. She was not breathing. And so she initiated CPR at that time.
I wasn't speeding. I wasn't bobbing. I was just floating. And I saw ahead of me a white cloud. And then I saw bright light from that white cloud. And I realized that I was approaching Jesus. And his light was so bright and so white, I couldn't see his face, but I knew it was Jesus. And then at that table was my dad and my grandmother. I didn't hear anything audible between them, but I could tell they were communicating with Jesus, and that he was just totally in love with them, and they were totally in love with him. What also stunned me, and is such a blessing to me now because I love praise music, is I heard tens of thousands of voices and instruments blending together, praising the Lamb. I couldn't make out distinct words, but the essence was just praising the Lamb. And I also saw these towers, these cylinders of crystal. They didn't have doorways or windows, but there was all of God's children were there, and those were the people that were praising the Lamb. So as I started getting a little closer to the table, and my grandmother was aware of it, and she started to lift her head. She had been looking at my dad and Jesus, and she was looking down at her plate, and she started to lift her head. That clued my dad in that I was nearing, and he started to turn his head towards me, and boom, I was back on the ground.
So Renee did chest compressions on her for at least 2 minutes, one full round. And about that time is when I was getting to the scene. As I came around the corner, she was just getting finished with that. And Renee just took a big breath and sat up, and she just said, I was in heaven.
I actually felt my soul thud back into my body, and I knew exactly where I was. And I was mad. I was mad to be back on earth. I wanted to stay in heaven. And so I tried to sit up and say, no, 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 because I was mad. And I heard all these nurses. I recognized all their voices.
Her vital signs were starting to normalize. Her eyes were, her pupils were going back to normal. She was communicating with us. And finally, after a long wait, we were able to get her loaded into an ambulance and send her to the hospital.
So I did go to the hospital overnight. They hooked me up to a heart monitor. I did not have a clot in my brain. I did not have a clot in my lungs. I did not have a heart attack. There was no physical reason why I quit breathing and my heart quit beating. I don't know if I did have an issue and I was healed, or if God just gave me this great gift to see what I saw.
In 10 years of nursing experience, I've never seen anything happen where somebody collapsed and we weren't able to find a cause or have a direct knowledge of what the reason was that happened. And it was just truly a miracle.
When I was in the hospital that night, God gave me a scripture, and that was the Song of Solomon, and the second chapter in that 4th verse, where it says that he escorts me to the banqueting table and his banner over me is love. And that is such a visual of what I saw. The greatest gift to me about my experience was that I know heaven is real, and I know Jesus' love is deeper than I can even explain. And I know there's complete healing. The way it's impacted my future is I just want to tell everybody all the time how much Jesus loves them. The love is more complete and deep and amazing than I can even explain with human words.
I'm Yesenia Olivas, and this is my story. God called me at the age of 15, but at the time I didn't know what I was missing out on, and I chose to live my own life, full of my own free will, and just enjoy what I thought was living. It all began with my sister, who led us all to Cowboy Junction. Of course, she was being led by God, even though she didn't know it yet. And God led me to Cowboy Junction, and one day he just told me that I had a home there. My youth pastor looked straight at me and he said, "You have a home here. You don't have to be afraid anymore. You don't have to worry about who you're gonna turn to. You have us. We're your family." And in that moment, I knew that I'd found a home and that God was gonna do amazing things in my life. When I went to Camp Crossfire, God truly changed my world. He showed me that it's not about myself, it's about His kingdom. And He just radiated with love. I decided then and there that He was gonna stay in my heart forever. When I decided to be baptized, it was a huge thing because I had already been baptized as a baby, and my mom and dad weren't in favor of it, so I was really scared and really sad about it. But I just prayed, and I called my mom that very morning that we were going to get baptized, and she okayed it. Since then, God has just continually put amazing people in my life, and people that have just pumped life back into me and built me up spiritually, and I love them and they love me, and it's just an amazing environment. Now I'm just excited to see what God has for me. I'm determined to do whatever it takes to pursue God and to lose myself in service for Him. And He called me to be a doctor, so I'm gonna go ahead and study as many years as it takes. The best gift I ever received in my life was knowing that God loved me and was a part of my life. And Him enabling me to see love in other people through Him and through His perspective has made the world of a difference in my life.
So Dana and I have been married for 8 years now, and we had talked about it early on. We kind of always knew that we wanted to be parents, and from the start, she kind of knew, the situation that I had, and I knew her situation. So we knew it wasn't necessarily going to be the easiest road getting to that sort of goal of being parents. And it was hard for a while. We saw a lot of friends having kids, and it just wasn't happening for us. She took the brunt of it because she went through a lot of procedures to help us with fertility, and it wasn't working. It was hard to keep the direction.
Yes,
because
or
of everything
even
that went
keep
on.
the faith that it's gonna occur.
And,
Everyone around you is so easily having children, and I happen to work in a OBGYN office, and I get to see life happening every day. And you're like, why, God, is this not happening for me? What could possibly, going through so many treatments, so many failed pregnancy tests or miscarriage, and it's so hard to stay happy for other people. It's sad to admit that, but as much as you love your friends and you're so happy for them, at the same time you're just like, I'm gonna punch them in the face if someone else tells me they're pregnant, which is awful to say. And of course we're happy for everyone, but you're just unfortunately selfish. You have that selfish need and that desire to be a parent, and I think at one point we reached a point where we actually thought maybe this wasn't God's plan for us. We loved each other enough that we would have been enough. And so many people prayed, and so many people, tell you, but God has a plan, and God has a, greater plan, and that the baby's out there for you. And it was really hard to accept that and believe that.
it's definitely not easy not getting something that you want so much, and something that comes so easy to other people, and that's is sort of a universal purpose between man and woman on this earth. I mean, if for nothing more than to create new life and carry that life on. It was hard, and we had an adoption that we thought was going to go through, and it didn't, and it's very difficult to keep your cool when you come so close to something that isn't a guarantee in life for us, like it is for some other people. So on July 29th, I'm at work just like every other day, and get a call from our adoption agency. A little boy has been born in El Paso, Texas. His parents are looking to adopt him out. Would you be interested in us showing your profile to this family? And of course, absolutely. I don't know that you can turn down a happy, healthy child. And so we agreed to that. They showed our profile. The next day I got a call saying, there's a little delay. So of course we're sitting there holding our breath. And the next day, which would have been a Thursday, I get a call at about 3 o'clock, and the lady from the agency says, "Congratulations, Mr. Sasser, you have a new baby boy. And when can you be in El Paso?"
When can you be in El Paso?
So I said, "Well, we'll be there tonight. Is there a timeline of how late we can get there?" And they said, "No, just as long as you let us know." I said, "Okay, well," trying to do the math in my head of how long it would take to rush from Hobbs to El Paso. and they said, "Okay, well, we can do that." And I called my wife. I'm like, "Honey, we're going to El Paso. Tell your boss you're not going to be in tomorrow." And get finished with the work day and pack a light bag and signed all of our papers that night with the representatives from the agency, and took our baby boy home to La Quinta at 1 o'clock in the morning on Friday morning. So that was the start of our new journey, and the start of God's plan for us for being parents. So that was pretty exciting.
Pretty exciting. But I was so nervous to meet him for the first time. What is he going to look like? And I was in a hurry. I just wanted to get him out of there and just take him, and for us to be by ourselves with him, all the nurses watching, and I just was ready to start getting to know him and being his mom.
So life now has sort of settled a little bit, and you get to take stock of where you are and where in God's path you feel like you are and what the next step is, because it's a little more defined now. Hopefully I don't take it for granted at any point, but it certainly has its challenges, when he's screaming at 3 o'clock in the morning, but it's absolutely worth it.
It's worth everything. All the challenges that we had to face, all those things that God placed in front of us to get us to this place, was all worth it.
We're Richard and Eileen Hicks, and we live out on the San Simon Ranch at between Eunice and Carlsbad, New Mexico. And we've been married for 11 years now. Our life was really good, and before Eileen had a wreck, and everything, our cutting was going good, our horses were good, everything was just really falling into place.
It was August 10th,
Mm-hmm.
and I was on my way to work, and I don't know why, but there was an oil field truck turning to the left, and he was stopped in the middle of the road. And I don't know why I didn't see him in time, but I rear-ended him. I guess badly. I knocked the axle out from under his truck. Well, so I really don't know anything else.
When we got to the hospital in Lubbock, I had no idea what to expect. Didn't have a whole lot of information. The nurse briefed me a little bit on what to expect, but just the fact that she was there and
What?
she was pretty hard to recognize. There was still they hadn't got her cleaned up completely from the wreck, but she was breathing. They didn't know exactly what, they hadn't done the test yet, they'd done a few x-rays, and she was broken. She was broken in a lot of places. One of the injuries that they didn't really know to what extent she had was a brain injury, and she had hit the left side of her brain, and they knew they had done a CT scan and an MRI, and they knew there was damage there, and but they didn't really know, that was one of those things that the next 48 hours, if her brain swelled so much, they'd have to go in and relieve the pressure. And since she was not able to respond and not able to, there was no test to give to know what extent injury we had to her brain. And for I'm going to say probably 12 days she didn't open her eyes. There was no really response. They did another CT scan a couple of weeks after her accident, and it showed the same thing, which they said was good. There was no more swelling. I didn't know what to expect.
When I was at Craig, I was laying in my bed on the 3rd floor, and I felt tingles on my arms. And I just know that I felt like people were praying for me. That's my first recollection.
Well, we were at Craig for right at 3 months. We got there on September 10th and left on December 5th, and we weren't ready to come home. There was still a lot of stuff that we were improving on, and so they moved our discharge date to December 5th, and we spent Thanksgiving at Craig, and was very thankful to be. It was probably the most thankful Thanksgiving I've had. Just the fact that we were there and still had each other. I think God knew that I wasn't ready, and so He provided the extra 2 weeks and provided me with more confidence, and the progress that Eileen made in the last 2 weeks was just unreal. It was, we were excited to come home. We were going to be home for Christmas, and we hadn't been home I'd been home one time in 4 months. Our discharge date came, and we packed. We loaded the pickup, got in the pickup. She walked out of the hospital, got in the pickup, and we drove from Denver to the ranch. Probably the first 9 days were really tough. There was questions why, and I don't know that I ever got mad at God, but I wanted to know why, and if this was something that I had done. And God He comforted me, and of course the whole time the devil is there saying, this is why, you did this, or y'all shouldn't have done this, and so my prayer daily, because I could feel the devil creeping in, and I would pray to God daily, God, when the devil knocks on my door, please, you answer it so I don't have to deal with it. And time after time, he answered the door every time. And there's no way I could get through all of this by myself. And I mean, he showed me a love that I didn't realize I had in myself and for Eileen. He trusted me with her, and that was probably one of the hardest things for me to do, is give her completely back to Him to fix. And He showed me that He could do that, and He has. Life now is, will it ever be the same life we had? I hope not, because it's better. And do we know where we're going? No, but we know who's going to lead us there. And as long as we put our faith in God and trust, then He's going to take us down the right road that we need to go on. And just recently when we were in Colorado, we were coming back from Estes Park or somewhere beautiful, and there was a huge sign, and it really got me, and it said, if God is your co-pilot and your life is not going the way you think it should, maybe you should switch seats. And too many times we think, okay, I've got God right here with me, I'm doing the right thing, but we're trying to control what we do, and we don't listen to Him, and instead of letting Him fly our ship and going where He leads us. And that's one thing that I've really tried to do, and God put that sign there for me to read. He's like, Richard, hey, this is for you. And so I think that's probably where our life's headed. We know He's got great things planned for us, but do we know those things yet? No, but we're going to really try to listen and go in the direction that He wants us to go.
When I was at the last cutting in Amarillo, one of the cutters there had come up to me and given me a donation from her and her husband to the association or to the club. And she said, we've always been believers, but my husband prayed out loud right after your accident. And then he got baptized right after that. And it changed their life too. So, thank God my life has changed and other people's have been changed too.
Well, I guess my best Christmas gift ever was probably Christmas of 2015 is when we were home with our family, and with Eileen was still with us that Christmas. And God, we didn't even have any gifts. We had each other, and God provided and gave us each other to love and to cherish, and so that's probably the best Christmas ever.
Ditto. I would have to agree wholeheartedly.
Wow, what a testimony. I really enjoyed the last few minutes. I know that it speaks to me and lets me know that God is at work in all kinds of people's lives, and what a testimony to hear these 4 stories. Cowboy Junction, it's time now for us to celebrate the giving of Christmas with the giving of our offering. What a joy to know that God first gave to us. In your offering today, you can either give online on our website, which is cowboyjunctionchurch.com, or you can simply pull up your smart device and pull up the Cowboy Junction app, and you can give that way also. The last thing I want to talk to you about is the next time we'll be attending church together is on January 1st, 2017. That's hard to believe, but when you come to church next week at Cowboy Junction, you're going to come into a new series we're going to kick off called The Greatest New Year's Kickoff Ever. It's going to be a party. It's going to be a celebration of what God wants to do in you in 2017. So come pumped, come excited, and trust me, we're going to beat you to it. We're going to be waiting for you, and it's going to be a great time. So see you next week at Cowboy Junction. Hope you enjoyed today. Merry Christmas and God bless. See you guys. It's time to love God, love people, and have no limits in our life.